Indianapolis comes away with the win despite a late game push from Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh Steelers, 27-24. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players from the Indianapolis Colts, starting with the 2 wide receivers at the very top. Josh Downs gets the crown here with a 90.5 grade this past week. His running mate, Michael Pittman Jr., right behind him at an 88.2. Defensive tackle Grover Stewart with an 84.4 at number 3. Jalen Carlisle with an 82.3. Cornerback Samuel Womack III with a 77.4. Big game from him. I'll get into that a little bit more later. Joe Flacco coming in off of the bench to relieve a injured Anthony Richardson, 55.8. And then when you flip the page to the Pittsburgh Steelers, safety Deshaun Elliott, the top graded player with an 86.2. Defensive tackle Cam Hayward with an 80.5. Edge rusher TJ Watt, 75.8. Offensive tackle Dan Moore Jr. with a 75.7, and then center Zach Frazier with a 74.7. Quarterback Justin Fields with a 67.0 in this game. Dalton, Stout told the story. What do we got?
So I got a weird one for you. I was watching this game, and it felt like there were times when the Colts' offensive line was dominant, like they usually are, right? And there was other times where it was like, oh, the Steelers are winning the battle here. And it's a battle of great units, right? The Colts might have the best offensive line in football. The Steelers might have the best D-line in football. It's just it's a primetime matchup.
Going into the week, right? That's what it was. When we previewed it on Thursday, this was the number 1 offensive line versus the number 1 defensive line for PFF grades.
Yeah, and the interesting part is there was a lot of this game where the Colts O-line was winning. They were getting movement early in the run game. They got out to the good start, whether it was Richardson or Flacco, right? They started the game off right. But something I think Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defensive staff is going to go back and look at is they're going to go, man, we should have sent heat. We should have sent pressure more often, right? And I'm going to split this up into a standard rush 4 or less and a blitz look 5 or more, okay? When the Steelers, 20 times that they sent a standard rush 4 or less pass rushers, they only got 3 pressures, and the Colts pass pro grade was 68.2, all right? When the Steelers blitzed them 11 times, they got 9 pressures on those 11 snaps, and the Colts pass pro grade was a 21.2. They basically just could not block the blitz, whether it was Richardson or Flacco or whoever back there. The Steelers, there was just too many times where, yes, they have a great front 4. I mean, they can send as good a front 4 as anybody. But the Colts could block those 4 guys. They were able to do it. Whether it was in the run game or especially in pass protection, when they were blitzing, Indy stood no chance at all. And I think if they would have just turned up the gas just a little bit more as the game went on, because Joe Flacco's not moving. Obviously Richardson can run if he's in there, but he got hurt. Flacco's not going anywhere, right? And he would have to make a second-and-a-half decision if you're getting through. It just felt like the Steelers, and it would have been a huge comeback, right?
Yeah.
The window was there. It was there, but they needed to just turn the heat up a little bit more on defense for me. Like, if they would have just said, you know what, screw it. Like, sometimes they used to do it in the old Dick LeBeau days too sometimes, right? When it's like, screw it, you know what, we got him. Just blitz him every play. And they just didn't do it. And Flacco was able, he just got enough clean pockets against a standard rush where he could make just enough plays to hold them off. And then the Colts again, they got good movement in the run game. I'd say in the run game was a pretty even battle overall. The Colts had their moments, the Steelers had theirs. But that was something to me that I looked at. I was like, man, they're just not getting there with 4. Like, in the times when they blitzed, they got there almost every time. I'm like, if they would have just turned the gas on a little bit more, they had it. They had, and again, they're not a team that wants to play from behind with the style that they play, and really George Pickens being their only receiving threat on the outside at least, and all of that. But it just, I could feel it. I was like, man, why don't they blitz more?
Did they
had it?
Did they start to blitz more during the second half of the game? I don't even know if it was more first half or second half.
I don't remember the timing of it, but I just know coming out of it, I was like, every time they did it, it worked. And they just should have. Had they turned the gas on more in the second half while they were coming back, and they were starting to get stops, but the Colts were still moving the ball. The times when they were blitzing them, Colts, they stood no chance.
Yeah. I only ask because, sometimes defensive coordinators are trying to think of a million things, so I'm not trying to make it sound like, they don't know what they're doing. Sometimes you just miss, the forest for the trees, if you will. And I think that, well, that's a big picture thing. I'm actually talking small picture. So some other analogy, you're missing the trees for the forest. I don't think that makes sense. But when you talk about blitzing a quarterback, sometimes I feel as though you almost want to start every game like that to be like, hey, if you can't handle it, we're going to keep sending it straight at you. And sometimes it is as simple as that, where maybe if the Steelers were doing that a little bit more at the beginning, I'm not sure whether they were or not. That's something I got to look up after the show, but that could have been something where it's like, man, okay, we realized the blitz was working later in the game.
It was an even, at least on pass plays, an even amount in both halves.
So then it was something that you just wish was
7 in the first half and 7 in the second half. And I wish they had seen that going into halftime, that's the part that was working, and gone, okay, let's keep on it. And as the game went on, and I think maybe they found it a little, but 7 in each half on pass plays. So it really just didn't change a whole lot. But I think going back and looking at it, that's the part where, and I know, look, they have a great front four, and they were struggling to cover in this game. But there's sometimes where you go, okay, if we're struggling to cover even, let's turn the heat up. Let's not give them 3, 4, 5 seconds to work with on the back end. So it's just an adjustment thing that I think could have been made. In reality, the Steelers fell behind in this game, and they don't want to play from behind. They want to play defense. They want to run the ball.
Of course.
It's the Iowa Hawkeyes thing. It's that thing where it's like we have to play within this space, and we can't fall behind by 2 scores. But an increased usage there would have got them back into it. I really believe so.
Stat that told the story for me is simply having Joe Flacco on the roster, right? Because we said when we showed the grades, he didn't play great, but 16 for 26 in this game, 168 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. It was not a vintage Joe Flacco performance, but it was enough. This is why you have a veteran on your roster. So if Anthony Richardson goes out, which unfortunately he has been injured throughout his NFL career quite a bit already, you are okay putting this guy in the game, especially when you have a lead, right? That's the thing that really stood out to me is Flacco was able to maintain the lead. And was Pittsburgh kind of storming back there at the end of the game? Sure they were. But when the clock hit 0, who was still in front? It was still Indy. And I think that's because you have a veteran on your team, and I think that's the stat that told the story. Whatever Joe Flacco's contract is, I should have looked up those numbers. Those should have been the stat that told the story. Whatever that was, it was worth it for you because you got this win here. My most impressive in this game, though, I'm going to go to their secondary. I said I highlighted Jalen Jones getting 2 interceptions last week after I sort of called him out on Twitter for wearing number 40. Fellow cornerback, Samuel Womack III, getting his first start this past week. 56 defensive snaps in this one. That was the most in a single game of his career so far. 77.4 coverage grade, 65.9 run defense grade. He allowed just 1 catch for 12 yards with 3 targets. Also had 2 forced incompletions. One of them was a pretty big one in this game. And so Samuel Womack, wanted to give him sort of a salute and say, hey, most impressive for him, really being able to step in. I thought that was a impressive performance from him.
Does he wear a good enough number for you?
He wears 33, which is better.
Okay.
I think it's better.
You're a 20s guy,
I don't
you?
love it still, but 33 is kind of like it's like a safety number to me. If you're going to be in the secondary and you got a number in the 30s, it's kind of like a safety number.
They just got to be wearing something between like 22 and 28 for you.
Any single digit number, good with. Anything of 20 to 29, and then I would say like 31, 32. That's kind of where I draw the line there. 41, oddly enough.
41's worked.
Good number.
It's worked in the past. I remember the one I can remember. I think is it Terrence Newman wore 41?
Terrence Newman did wear 41. Didn't Antoine Bethea wear 41? Right, as well.
He was a safety though.
Okay, because Roman Harper was too. Roman Harper also wore 41. I believe. But safeties. Anyway,
Terrence Newman's the one I remember with 41 for sure.
That one checks out.
Great player. Great player he was.
Good ball player. Who's your most impressive?
You know what? I think this Colts offense operates a lot better. I've been talking for several weeks about, look, just get first downs. Okay, we don't have to hit all these home runs, and obviously Joe Flacco understands that. He's been around long enough, but I think a guy like Josh Downs really, really helps their offense, and I think it made a huge difference. It was his second game of the year. Didn't quite get it going last week. This week he got it going. 8 catches. 82 yards, a touchdown, and 5 other first downs. If his name isn't already Josh First Downs, it needs to be. I think that's something. We either need to trademark, or if they already have it, cool. But no, just that he's the guy that moves the chains. And actually, Flacco even talked about that after the game. He was like, Josh Downs really got a lot of big first downs for us, and that's just, to me, Pittman obviously moves the chains too. Michael Pittman had a fantastic game, but I think having a guy like Downs in the slot who can just route up guys one-on-one in that area, catch a 5-yard ball, take it after the catch across the chains, I just think it made a big difference. It felt like he was that guy they were missing the first 3 weeks, where it was like, Alec Pierce is a long ball guy. Michael Pittman can do a little bit of everything, but having Josh Downs as a guy who can move the chains and just keep this offense functioning 10 yards at a time is big, because I thought the first 3 weeks they were trying to hit way too many home runs. They just need to manufacture and let the home runs come to you, right? Just keep the chains moving. I thought he made a huge difference in this game.
No, and even the touchdown catch, he looks like he's got juice, right?
Yep.
The touchdown catch from him, Shane Steichen was in his bag because he motioned him before the snap, and then it was the whip route. So it's like, okay, I'm going one direction. Just kidding, I'm going the other. So now, the corner, the defensive back, whatever, you're forcing so much communication, but then you're also really stressed out because this is a very quick football player who has the opportunity to gain separation in really small situations. So not, game-wise, it was a big situation. He scored a touchdown. I'm saying small area, in a phone booth, if you will. So that is Josh Downs' bread and butter. It's an area that I loved his game when he was coming out of UNC, but I love the fact that not only was he short area quick, he was strong at the catch point too. So to me, I think that we're just seeing the beginning of what Josh Downs can blossom into. I think he is a legitimate option for this passing attack. Most disappointed, Steelers run blocking. I know it wasn't all bad, but 68.9 run blocking grade versus the Colts. 1.1 yards before contact per attempt for all of their running backs. I'm wondering, man, Najee Harris, the numbers just are not good for Najee Harris. I'm looking at him. He had 13 attempts, only 19 yards. Justin Fields is a different story. Cordero Patterson, I know it was a different story as well. But, the traditional run game, what they want to do out of their traditional run sets has just not been working. And it's those parts of the offensive line and of their offense that have to get better, because you mentioned this is not really a team that just wants to chuck it deep down the field or rely on a ton of explosives. They want to be steady in what they do. They want their defense to lead the way. That's the DNA of this team, and they're hoping that Justin Fields being in the lineup simply gives them the opportunity to infuse some of those explosive plays in there. But it's much more of a controlled script. That's what they want to do. And right now, their run blocking is not good enough to do that. 1.1 yards before contact as an average, that is just simply not good enough. It wasn't good enough in this game, and I think that's why you ultimately saw them not winning this game. They weren't allowed to play. They were not allowed to play their brand of football as much as they wanted to, even before the score got out of hand.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, the run game, and honestly, they need more help to me in the passing game too. I think for me, my most disappointing is Steelers' weapons. Mainly, I would say not named George Pickens, although he's not totally absolved of blame because of the fumble inside the 10-yard line. That was a drive that the Steelers were really moving and could have got back in the game. That was, I believe, in the second quarter it was. But look, I need another answer in the passing game. And Pat Freiermuth had 29 yards on one catch and then 28 the rest of the day. Najee Harris had a big play on a screen, but I need guys more consistently on the perimeter who can win, because right now, look, in this game, Van Jefferson had 2 catches for 21 and Calvin Austin had 1 for 17, and other than Pickens, that was it for their wide receivers. I don't know if it's, if he's healthy yet, if Roman Wilson's ready to play, or
they need Roman Wilson badly.
So bad, because you can feel it on too many plays, and I know some people, there goes Justin Fields holding the ball, but he's holding the ball because, honestly, it's just a lot of plays no one's open. And you're just seeing it. And I know, look, Pickens is really good, and he's obviously their top guy. And he had a day worthy of a number one receiver yesterday outside of the fumble, right? 7 catches, 113 yards. But they need something else on the outside, somebody else that can win, because you can just see way too often. You mentioned the run game. If they don't have the run game going, well, George Pickens isn't the type of guy that's going to get 300 yards for you. He's not, he's very good, but you don't think of him like Justin Jefferson or Julio Jones or somebody like that. Right. They need somebody, just somebody to step up, a number 2 receiver to me on this offense. The offensive line is young and developing, and obviously Fautano's hurt, and they've been figuring out the tackle thing all year. But they just don't have a number 2 receiver, and it showed to me yesterday. There's just too many plays where we didn't get anybody separating.
Look, I love him, but Darnell Washington's a biscuit away from being a right tackle, right? And he had more receiving yards in this game than Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. That kind of tells you what you need to know. Look, all due respect to Darnell Washington, who was a top 20
good
player.
Good player. He's playing well, but if you don't have threats on the outside, what are you? Honestly.
Right. And I think Roman Wilson really helps that team
big time
in this area. So I'm excited to see him whenever he is able to get healthy and back out onto the field.